Well, here we are. It's been a few weeks since I've been able to work on this little baby, but we are back. As you can see, I've got my work table back, so this is going to make things a lot easier. So we've got the rear wheel chocked up, and we are going to pull off the chain guard slider. I've already undone the bolts here, but these two pins on the front of the slider are holding this cover, and this cover has to come off because we have to take the slave off. And we have to take the slave off because we have to remove the seal from this side that prevents oil from leaking around the clutch push rod. So that's what's on the agenda for right now. Won't take long, I'm sure. So it's a 4mm Allen wrench right in here. There we go. All that goo. Okay, so that's removed the slider. The exhaust cover is still secure. Take the sprocket cover off. Now the instructions said you don't need to take off this bracket for the kickstand and foot peg. So we theoretically should be able to slide this out. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Okay, let's see how that goes. Oh yeah, that reminds me. A few people have been commenting on how terrible it must be to have to work on all this gravel. This is not a gravel floor. It has some dirt on it, but it's not gravel. This is an epoxy surface. It's very tough. Ooh, and a little dirty right now. But it is not gravel. So it has a problem with that speckled finish, makes it actually really difficult to find nuts and bolts that you've dropped. But I repeat, it is not gravel. Okay, so the long bolt goes in the top, short bolt goes in the bottom. There we go. Okay, so twist it down and it comes right out. Okay, so there's the slave cylinder. So this is what connects to the clutch. Okay, so that's the seal. Let's take a look. I'm told that the number one warranty job I did while I was working at a KTM dealership was slave cylinders. And yeah, a friend of mine just bought a brand new, what was it, the new 450 SMR by Husky, which is actually just a KTM with a different color. And they're still having that same problem years later. I remember talking to the KTM USA tech reps saying, hey guys, come on, what's going on with this slave cylinder? Can't we get a fix? And they said, yeah, it's coming. The Austrians have already got the new parts. They'll be coming to you any day now. That was 2 years ago. And there's still a problem. Okay, so this is rejuvenated. So let's see, the instructions say to pull the seal out of the slave E3. Loosen and remove E1 and E2. Done. Move the slave cylinder assembly aside and remove the oil seal E3. Interesting. Now, part of the reason it's taken me so long to get back to this project is I spoke to the dealership I bought this little beastie from and asked for some assistance with the special tools. And with a little bit of scheduling, I was able to go to the dealership and get the tools. So I'll include some pictures of those. I don't have them still. They actually offered to let me borrow them, but I thought it would be better to just measure them and use them at the dealership. So I was able to do that. So I'll include a picture of each, or of the three tools, and also of them in use. So that'll come up right now. Okay, so now, while we ruminate on that oil seal, we're going to follow the next step. Loosen and remove screw and screw. Move the slave cylinder assembly aside and remove the oil seal E3. Okay, that does not want to come out. Then remove lock nut E6, which is clearly right there. Drive the dowel fully home, E5. Tighten the dowel to the specified torque, 5 Newton meters. Start the lock nut, then tighten the lock nut to 15. Okay, so we'll try that next. Very strange. Is it a 12 or a 13? It's a 13. So it's a Torx 30. There it is. I'm really curious to know what this does. Okay, it's fully home, and we need a 13 mil. Okay, now it said the lock nut to 15 and the pin to 5. So the pin is just barely 5 Newton meters is kind of a moderate finger tightness. 15 is a slightly more finger tightness. Okay, and there's 15. All right, let's see. Yeah, so the dealership was very helpful. Answered a lot of my questions. Okay, you know what? Yeah, that's good. Answered a lot of questions. Provided me with a user manual. Sorry, owner's manual. Not a workshop manual, just the owner's manual. But that's the document that has a lot of information about the electronic suspension, which is what I was most curious about. So I was asking for information on the frequency at which these adjusters change while the bike's in motion. They were unable to answer that. Said they would check with the Ducati North America, see if they can get an answer from those guys. It's been over a week now. All they've been able to come back with was the owner's manual. But I'm optimistic that perhaps they'll be able to provide more. We'll see. Okay, so we still need to get this damn oil seal out. I'd like to do it without having to bleed the clutch, but if necessary, that's what I'll do. Okay, there's the piston. It's already got crap in there. So this is the slave piston. This is the one that needs to have the seal removed. Very curious as to why this is necessary. Okay. It does not want to come out. You know what? I'm going to take a picture of this and send it to the Ducati Tech. And get some clarification before I damage anything. The slave is back together. We are going to reinstall this after some pictures. Totally unsuccessful. We did not remove any seal, but I got a picture. I'll send that to the Ducati Tech I know, who has done the training course on installing this kit. When I spoke to him about it though, he said, "What? I don't remember that," when I referred to the seal removal step. So I'll send him the picture of the slave piston, and and see what he says. In the meantime, I'll just reassemble everything and we will move on to the next step and continue from there. Okay, so here we are on this side of the engine again. I was able to install this seal and the bearing cage in the shaft thanks to the dealership Eurosport Cycles in Fort Worth. Thank you very much. That was a very informative few hours spent talking to the technician there. So I pushed the seal in, and then I was able to use the special tool here to position this oil cover and then tightened it down. That's necessary so that there's no high pressure points pushing this seal against this hub, because this rotates with the transmission. So this rotates with the engine, this rotates with the transmission. And so because this is spinning so fast all the time, you don't want any part of the seal to be pushed up tight against the hub. So that would mean it would be tight. If it was pushed up this way, it would be tight here, but it would be loose there. And if it was pushed, this cover was misaligned that way, then it would push against this and have a gap here. So thanks to that special tool, because these holes are not machined accurately enough to position the cover, the tool positions the cover relative to this shaft. Anyway, so that's all done. The cage is in, the seal is in, and we are actually ready to begin with the final assembly. So we used that tool to position the cover, and now we are ready for the outer hub. So that means 33 Newton meters for those bolts with oil-proof Loctite. Okay, 33 Newton meters. I believe it's a 13 millimeter. There we go. And okay, so now that the bolts are in, you'll notice that I did a 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. In case that's not clear, I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is so that the two surfaces, the hub and the basket, clamp together like this. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then what will happen is the hub here will have the clutch tightened like this. And when you're all done and you get around to this side, maybe it's hung up and the two surfaces won't be in parallel. It might even tighten like this. So to avoid that, you do it the cross pattern. You do that same thing with wheel nuts for the same reason. Okay, so let's tighten this up. We've got 33 Newton meters, I believe. Yep, there it is. Someone's having some problems outside. Okay, we're doing 25. Ooh, that was 35 for 5. 6. Okay, so 37. All right, what's the next step? This washer, number 37. Okay. I've laid out all the parts, along with the obligatory Mountain Dew. Now then, 37 is part number, it's a washer with the writing facing out. Now it doesn't actually say which part number 37 is, which is, again, a bit of a problem, but there's not much we can do. I did verify the fitment with the Ducati tech, and he confirmed, yes, that my understanding of the parts order is correct. Okay, so we got 37, and we're good. Now, all the clutch plates. Okay, the clutch plates go after the inner hub, which is here. Okay, so I'll keep this little nut vertical just to make it as a good reference. And you can see the action of the slipper clutch. So what happens is when the rear wheel starts to go faster than the engine, it drives, because this is the let's see, this is the inner, this is the outer. Yeah, so the outer is this one, and that's connected to the engine. So if the engine starts to drag against the wheel instead of driving the wheel, it literally opens, it spins in the reverse direction. So instead of driving that way, like it does normally, you can see that that's what happens. It drives normally this way. If the wheel starts to push it, then it goes like that. If the wheel starts driving the transmission, this happens, because the engine is slower than the transmission. So when that happens, it literally opens up the plates because it pushes that way, like that, and that means that the plates open up, the gaps open up, just as if you were squeezing the clutch. So that prevents wheel hop. Anyway, so let's install this. There we go. So that's the transmission spinning. Okay. Now all the yes, the Schnorr washer is number 27. Where is it? 27. Insert the Schnorr washer on the gearbox primary shaft. Okay, we'll do that after we've done the plates. And the only thing to note about these is that the outer plate, which is number 28, is 2 millimeters thick. It's pretty easy to tell the difference though, even without a caliper. Oh, 1.99 millimeters. Okay, so this is the outermost steel, and we'll just make sure that all the rounded edges are out, because that's going to allow us to see these numbers. So rounded edges out, sharp edges in. Okay, so this is not going to be terribly interesting, so I will fast forward through this section. We've got the Schnorr washer in, the steels and the fibers are all aligned. Now we've got to do the secondary spring, and then pusher plate, which has that little dot here, needs to be aligned with the mark on the single tooth. So one of the teeth here, I put that there, so that doesn't count. I should have put it right there, but anyway. So that mark on this tooth here aligns with that dot there. And there we go. So next up, we've got that. Next up is the primary spring. And then number 20A, which they call pusher plate. Then the thrust washer, thrust bearing. And then number 18, which is called a, start the nut. Okay, it's just called a nut. Okay, we've got the washer in there so it can't come loose. Okay, I think we'll get a little assistance with this. It's 30 millimeter. Okay. And that was 190. Oh, you know what? This only goes up to 100. So this isn't going to read it. It only goes up to 135. Okay, so I will get my other torque wrench and be right back. Let's see, 190 Newton meters set, and this is as tight as it's going to be. So that's done. What's next is the spider piece. The bearing and the hub are already installed from the factory. And you know what? That's it. This is the last piece. This one matches into there, so the push rod goes into here. So when the push rod pulls it out, it pulls the pusher plate out. So the default is that the spring is pushing the plates together. Squeezing the clutch pushes the rod out and pulls the plates apart. Okay. And again, we're going to do a cross pattern. Multiple steps. Okay, and that says 8 Newton meters, which is just a little tight. There's my handle. Okay. That's it. According to the manual, all that's left is the cover. I'm probably going to get an aftermarket cover for this and then reinstall. Okay, so we've got the pressure sensor, hasn't been removed. I didn't see the need for that. The ABS controller has to be reinstalled. These have to be reinstalled. The foot peg bracket has to be reinstalled, but you know what? We can do that later. How about now we take a look at the clutch in action. Ooh, gotta get a key. I'll be right back. So let's give it a try. Before we do, just to see the action of the clutch in motion, squeeze it in, ease it out. Squeeze it in, ease it out. That may sound familiar to anyone who's taken the basic rider training course here in the US, which I taught for a couple of years. Anyway, here we go. Simple as that.